Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
The Ministry of Health would like to appreciate Ugandans for their cooperation in ensuring that COVID-19 standard operation procedures are adhered to. However, it would also like to remind the public that cases of neglect tropical diseases are still many. And for that matter, the Ministry of Health, together with Ascend Project, would like to encourage all the people who have signs and symptoms such as swollen stomachs, swollen legs, also known as elephantiasis, and difficult in seeing or blindness, to seek treatment from the nearest government health facilities. Please remember to stay safe and protect yourself by regular hand washing with soap and clean running water, keeping dirty hands away from your eyes, always using pit latrines and discouraging open defecation in your community to avoid flies that carry germs, reporting to health facility early when feeling unwell. This message is brought to you by Ministry of Health with support from Ascend Project.
The status, where are we as of now? Because we have had wave and the rest of the things, but maybe Doctor will help us as a country.
Exactly. Yeah,
using Kampala City Council as the sample to know where we are. The situation, how is it? Do we have anything to worry about? Can we be confident that we are okay? What do we need to do?
Because the last time the president spoke to us, he gave us statistics of those very worrying figures. And Kampala alone, I think in 1 week had 15,000 infections.
Yes.
Now, that was record-breaking. And now, that of course qualifies Kampala to be the epicenter. Dr. Yen, you are in the city, which is actually the hotspot.
But even also before he comes to that, we are talking of ordinarily, I would understand why Kampala becomes the epicenter, because the other reason is that Kampala is the area where even the testing is also upscaled as compared to other areas. So it could also be possible that it could be having similar situations outside there, where but the testing maybe has not been up to the speed of Kampala. Maybe that's also maybe the other thinking.
I was looking at my statistics same time last year, and
about this time last year.
Yes, about this time last year.
When we've been asking for easing of the lockdown.
When you were asking for easing of the lockdown, I think we had slightly over 100 cases in Kampala, and that time we were contributing 8% of the national load. So when I came about the same time this year, Kampala had over close to 45,000 cases, and we are contributing about 54% of the national load. So you can see the change from 1 year, and about this time 1 year, we're actually saying COVID is a disease that tends to be more pronounced in the urban areas. It is a disease of movement, it's a disease of interaction. Now, interaction and movement tend to be much more pronounced and closeness in the urban areas.
Exactly.
And what we have seen, what has happened in other countries, cities were hit most. New York being the business hub and the movement. So in all countries, what you will see, the cases tend to be more in cities. Now, what we are seeing in Kampala in this wave, and where we are now targeting, initially we are doing contact tracing because the cases were few. Now, our focus is, can we be able to identify, because once we brought home-based care, we know there are people who are at home. Now the point is that how can we identify those who have severe disease and those that are prone to developing severe disease, such that we can evacuate them from the communities. It is obvious that now deaths are becoming more visible. Previously, the deaths were not more visible. So as regards the situation, yes, as the cases, Kampala still contributes more than 54% of the cases. But as we will say, probably we are testing more. But again, probably when you look at the characteristics that tend to spread, to facilitate the spread of COVID, Kampala fits in. So Kampala is a high-risk area, or any urban area is high-risk by nature. When you look at where the outbreaks have been, schools, prisons, congregate settings. Cities tend to have congregate settings. So, one, yes, we are still having the deaths. I think the other day we had about 35 deaths, and countrywide we had 1,000 cases. Kampala has been contributing between 30 and 50% of the daily caseload. and even when you look at the deaths, the majority are in Kampala. Yes, the majority may be in Kampala because the facilities that are treating may be more in the city. So people who are coming from up country are coming into Kampala where they believe the facilities are and dying. But we are also looking out and saying, are there community deaths that we are missing? People who have been under home-based care and probably may have passed on, and people may think it's a natural occurrence, yet it is COVID. So our teams are also looking at those deaths. But at least one thing we have done is to be able to pick out the severe cases and then take them to hospital such that we can, one, reduce mortality. Then the general provisions that have been put in of restriction of sectors is to then be able to reduce on the number of the sick, which for us we call morbidity. Who are the people who are getting the disease? So again, that is what is happening. But what we have seen in other countries is COVID has a way of overwhelming the health system, no matter how good it is. If, as doctors, we are human like anybody else. So if I have a staffing of about 100, and if 20 got COVID and all of a sudden they are away for 2 or 3 weeks, you've more or less crippled my health system away. So it depends on who has been affected, what is happening. Now we need to be able to protect the frontline health workers who are there, such that if you come to hospital, you have somebody take care of you. And just again to reiterate, as regards urban areas, those ones tend to be most hit. As regards the number of cases, we still have COVID in the community. People are still there. Transmission is still ongoing, and this can be reflected by the deaths that are also happening. We are having severe cases, and our hospitals are also feeling the strain of the cases that are there.
Akol, yes, let's hear from you.
Thank you, Ndugu Jagenda. I think my take on this is that I think as a continent, because the Pan-African slogan is one struggle, many fronts. The struggle is the fight against COVID-19. But every country, I think, is taking its own front because, of course, others are taking this path, others are taking the other path. For example, there are countries that actually have not believed in the vaccination. We see there are some countries that are living in denial, saying, look here, there is no COVID. Others actually sticking, saying, look here, we need to have an African solution. So we are taking different fronts in this. But what is very important is how do we harmonize these fronts in the fight against COVID-19 as a continent. And this also has brought on the scene unscrupulous people, players. You remember when we had AIDS here in Uganda. Seriously, we had is it Nanyonga, who actually made a fortune out of it. We had the Mzov of Tanzania in Loliondo, and you saw how people really made pilgrimages.
Loliondo in Tanzania.
In Tanzania, yeah, to go and actually for treatment, and it turned out to be a hoax. So that is how every other time there is such a pandemic whereby there is a serious occurrence, a serious disease, out of panic, people will end up believing in anything. So this is where perhaps governments on the African continent need to come out and give serious leadership, and perhaps put up measures to control such behaviors. Now in Uganda we've heard of the COVID-X, and ideally you can see now the price is shooting from 5,000 to 10,000. Now it goes to up to 60,000. So I think that such kind of behavior where we get opportunists who make a fortune out of such pandemics is really not African, because African is how do we solve a problem that is amidst us together. So my view is that as we're getting a cure for COVID, as we're trying to control the spread of COVID, I think really governments need to come out, yes, so that they can really save people from extortion, save people from exploitation, yes, so that we can live with the fight one day at a time,
Okay.
without actually again affecting other people, because we've heard of cases where really people are losing property in millions, and again losing the person they were trying to treat.
Land title.
Yeah, land title.
And land titles.
Yes.
Dr. Yen will talk about this. Now, I've just been told that Dr. Msoke Ntate is online from Sierra Leone. Dr. Msoke, good morning, Dr. Msoke. We're happy to see you and hope we'll hear you.
Good morning, Mr. Jagenda.
Well, we are
morning
thankful to
the
hear from you
panelists.
live from
Thank you.
Sierra Leone, where you are this morning. First, speak to us and tell us what the time is in Sierra Leone, how it is, and whether you can actually see us and hear us well.
Yes, I'm getting you well, and thanks once again for giving me this opportunity to talk to us. And good morning to the fellow panelists, and good morning to fellow Ugandans out there. The situation here is more or less what we see elsewhere on the continent, and also what we are seeing in Uganda. We are currently going through what we are calling the third wave. We have had two similar ones before, but this is
Dr. Msoke.
that we are dealing with.
Dr. Msoke, hold it there. You have a very clean picture of yourself. We can actually see you, but your audio is too low. We are missing out on the very good submission that you are giving to us. We do not know whether it is your site where you are or some other thing, but I think we need to increase on your audio because we do not want to miss out on any of the things that you are telling us this morning. We just want to be sure that we can actually hear you very well. I do not know whether it's a technical problem here or it is with you. I don't know how your audio is there. Can you hear us ably well?
Yeah, so I'm actually hearing you very well. I'm surprised that you cannot hear me.
Oh, okay. Somebody needs to help us because we need to we need to get to Dr. Msoke. We're seeing him. He has a very stable picture, but the audio is not as we expect it to be. Doctor, just hold it there. Let's work on your volume or audio, then we come back to you. In the meantime, let's talk to Dr. Yen in studios here, as we tend to see what we can do with you that side. We'll make sure that we get it there. Dr. Yen, coming back to you, I have a statement here that I want to read to you from the CDC Africa, and the director of CDC Africa says it's frightening to see what is going on across the continent. This is what John Nkenga Song, the director for Africa CDC, says. This is the first time that we are beginning to see countries report that their health systems, the hospitals, are completely overwhelmed. Now, it's a problem that is overwhelming all of us. And one of the challenges that we have is that we have a big population of 1.3 billion people, but just 1% of those have been vaccinated. If vaccines are the solution or the way forward or the next thing to do, and we just at 1%, 99% of Africans have not yet been vaccinated fully. So where does that leave us as a continent? Where does that leave the rest of us as Africans as we battle this Delta wave?
Yeah, definitely. Only having 1% of your population means we have not even hit the threshold where you'd want to protect our population. So it leaves us at a very, very precarious level. And as you said, we need to open up the channels for vaccines to come into Africa. I know the Africa CDC has opened up a collective bargaining entity whereby all African countries will be able to access our vaccines through the African CDC. But as you know, between me and you, there has been, what can I say, there's been a lot of internal looking in from most of the countries that can be able to provide these vaccines. India, when India was hit by that variant and the cases really exploded, then they stopped they kind of reduced on the exportation of vaccines to Africa. You know that it's not a matter of having the money. You may have the money, but you cannot be able to get the product. And the other front that is being negotiated is on the intellectual property rights, because we know the vaccines are there, but can these property rights then be given to other manufacturers, such that probably plants can be put up here? I know the World Trade Organization under the TRIPS is negotiating this, and the last time, I think, was it in Geneva, was about 3 weeks ago. These were negotiations going on. So in order for us to be able to avoid the I can't call it the dire situation that may arise, we need to have vaccines coming pretty fast to Africa. And this can only be done if we have an assured pipeline as Africa, and this, I think, would best be done as a collective bargaining power. And you know, with COVID, you can't say I'm well because I've been vaccinated, and even if my neighbor is not vaccinated, it is okay with me. This is the disease, as I said. It's about travel, it's about congregation, and it's about movement. Where the world is surviving on movement, the world is surviving on travel. So you're not going to say that if 60% of Europe or 70% of America is vaccinated, we can forget about Africa, because we have become so intertwined, and the solidarity has to go beyond. And I think His Excellency the President talked about it very clearly. You cannot say, if because I'm well, I should forget about my neighbor. In Africa, we beat drums when there is a problem. So that solidarity has to come through, and it has to come through pretty fast. Because, as you say, the first cases were imported. They came out of travel. They came out of movement into Africa. And you cannot say that if we do it that way, we shouldn't worry about the other countries. So again, we need to make sure that, and as you say, collective bargaining as Africa come up, strong voice, strong measures, and we have our pipeline of vaccines.
Okay. Dr. Msoke, let's come back to you. If you can hear us. Yes, we know that you can hear us. Speak to us again and we'll hear from you.
Thanks once again. Not so sure if now the audio is better.
Yes, we are very grateful that we can now hear you. Welcome to this conversation, Dr. Msoke. We missed your first submission. Let's get back to that before we get into issues.
Yeah, thank you. I was submitting that the situation where I am is much similar to where you are. We are dealing with a third wave, which started about the beginning of June. And it is the third one that we're experiencing since the start of the pandemic. 2 others had taken place before, one in May 2020, and another one about end of the year, last year. So the current one is the worst we are seeing so far, and different measures are being also put into place to contain the situation. But I want also to make some observations based on the submissions from my colleague, Dr. Okello. Glad to see on the forum. Mr. Jagenda, you asked at the beginning about the Delta variant and why it is not another name. And I thought maybe I should give some background information on how we got where we are. So, as submitted by Dr. Okello, these viruses change, they mutate over time as a means of survival. So even COVID, from the start, it has been mutating, and the scientific community globally has been studying it in different parts of the world. And they are what we call variants of interest and also variants of concern. Variants of interest are not as important scientifically, but they need to be observed all over time. What we are mostly concerned about are the variants of concern. And so far, the ones that have taken place are 4 in number. There is what we call the alpha, the beta, the gamma, and the delta. These names are assigned based on the properties in the virus that are seen, and yet to differentiate them from others as when scientists communicate to each other in different parts of the world. But the virus remains the same. So Delta is the most vicious that we have seen so far. First observed in India about around April of this year, and it has spread to different parts of the world. About a month back, or about 3 weeks back, there were only 5 countries on the continent here in Africa which had not yet confirmed seeing this variant in their communities. All the others had seen it, and the ones that hadn't yet seen it, mostly it was because they hadn't probably tested yet, or they hadn't exchanged samples with other countries where there is more capacity to have that confirmation done. So they are here, and probably even others will come, but the scientific community out there is observing, and a lot also is being done in terms of research, and a lot also is being done in terms of vaccines to contain these new variants as they come. Because as again observed by Dr. Okello, the current one that we are dealing with, the Delta, is more transmissible. It catches faster compared to the others before it. It can even catch people who have suffered from COVID before, and including even those who have been vaccinated, although the outcomes are much better when one has been vaccinated before getting this.
Okay, Dr. Msoke, when I look onto the dashboard here, I see that the cases in Sierra Leone are not as those that we have in Uganda. And we know that Sierra Leone has just come from that history of also battling with Ebola. Which of course ravaged them more than it did to Uganda and maybe the other countries. And strangely, Sierra Leone is one of the countries on the continent that got their COVID cases much later than almost everybody. What are they doing right that is helping them this time round that maybe we in Uganda and the rest of Africa can also copy from that other African country in Sierra Leone?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jagenda. So Sierra Leone is different from Uganda in many contexts. In terms of population, here we are talking of about 7.5 million. Uganda, we are talking of close to 40 million or thereabout. So it is a different situation altogether. But also in terms of population distribution and the population movements, here we have a little bit of a more urbanized population. So we are seeing most of the cases around the capital city, where there is more population density around, and interaction between the capital city and the provinces in terms of population distribution and travel in between might not be as much as it is in Uganda. But true, the country is also doing a number of interventions which may not be similar to what is being back home. For example, currently Uganda is in a total lockdown. This is, I think now we are in the second week running. But in Sierra Leone, we don't have a lockdown as such at this point in time. But there are a number of other measures being done. In terms of vaccination, the picture is more or less the same. We are having very few of our people vaccinated so far, and maybe we shall get to that at some point during the discussion.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Msoke, for giving us what is actually happening in Sierra Leone. We'll come back to studios, but we thank you that you're still with us online. Let's get back to your fellow Dr. Okello Ayen here in studios. Also speak to us. Then, if you feel you have anything to chip in, Dr. Msoke, please just raise your hand and come in, and let's hear your thoughts on what is happening. But we're happy to have you from Sierra Leone, where you are right now, and thank you for having allowed us to inconvenience you very early in the morning. To us, it's already into the day of business. To you there, it's still very early. Dr. Yen, you've heard from Dr. Msoke in Sierra Leone, and of course, he's tried to also share the figures with us here. But there's also the politics of vaccination, where we actually have lots of issues coming on. One of the other things that we have on the continent, we talk about a continent or a population that is very, actually we're not even vaccinated, we could say. 1% is not anywhere. But the problem is what we tag to the vaccination itself and how we look at it, how we view it, and a number of things that we're saying. We don't seem like we really want to be vaccinated because of the politics of the vaccines itself, and we do not know what it is. What is happening in Uganda currently is that people are saying that those that have actually received the jabs are the ones who are even dying, and that is also scaring people away from going for vaccination. And we're talking about an unvaccinated population and how it's managing the variant.
Yeah. Let me start with the last one. Dr. Msoke, welcome, and I'm glad he's here with me. There's a term we use in public health, what we call vaccine hesitancy. And that has been there, is even when you were giving childhood vaccines. You'd find there would be mothers who would say, my child is not going to be vaccinated. The father would say, my child is not going to be vaccinated. And each time we would have discussions with them, you'd find that all this came more from association. As you say, you associate something, but it is not the direct cause. They would say that, when Mr. Jagenda comes every Tuesday at 9, it rains in UBC. Now that may be an association, but there is no cause that Mr. Jagenda actually brings rain each time he comes. So most people, what we are seeing now is that people actually say, oh, such and such a person was vaccinated and such a person died. What we have seen and what we have seen in other countries, and I tell them that we were lucky as Africa that right from the beginning we saw what happened in other places. We saw how the cases exploded. We saw how the deaths would go up to 6,000 deaths in a day. But we also saw in real time what vaccines can do. In November, December, those countries that were hard hit, as soon as they started their vaccination exercise, you'd see within 2 months there was actually a drastic fall in the number of deaths, number one, but also the number of infections also came down. But the most dramatic was in the number of deaths. New York is opening up when? Or they have already started opening up.
They're starting to open up.
Now, all this you can actually see because we have been sitting on our TV screens, and it is very obvious that vaccines have actually worked, and they are working. So again, what tends to bring the vaccine hesitancy, and social media has also been able to because whatever anybody puts there, and WHO came up with the term of an infodemic. There's a lot of information outside there. But how do you see what is right? How do you see what is wrong? Now, what most people do is that they will get a statement, and people won't want to say, is this true? Is this false? When I was being taught in school, I was like, no matter what somebody tells you, first go and research whether it's actually a fact. Now, I always tell people, and I'll repeat this, and probably the person I'm going to refer to may actually forgive me, but we have this very famous gentleman called Gorola. Gorola used to say, I would look at a woman and she what?
Yeah, and she gets pregnant.
And she actually gets pregnant. If you looked at that woman, and by any instance that woman actually got pregnant, they will say, oh, you see, Gorola actually looks at women and they become pregnant. They become pregnant. But we know that there is a proven way that we are all taught how that can occur. Now, if I get the fact that when Gorola looks at somebody gets pregnant and I keep on spreading it, there will be people who will take it. Now, for me, my job is to make sure to show them that no, this is actually what happens, and that's what we call causation, cause and effect. When I do this, I can prove that that is the effect. But association is where Gorola looks and you'll actually be able to say this woman actually got pregnant because Gorola looked at her. Now, that is where vaccine hesitancy is. People will tend to associate. And depending how they believe strongly in it, you need to chip it away bit by bit. Do not dismiss it, but be able to engage them bit by bit. Again, when Ebola just came, we used to say, do you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody?
Who died of Ebola?
Who died of, of COVID-19. But now, when you ask somebody the same question, you'll see, but you kept on that message that there is COVID-19, there is COVID-19. The next you are saying, where are the deaths? How come people are not dying? Why are we seeing people doing push-ups and doing sit-ups in these areas? And you kept on saying, no, this disease actually has a high mortality. This is going to happen. So we need to continuously be able to educate people. The associations will come, but facts never lie. Facts never lie. We just need to bring out the facts that, you know, vaccines, as you've seen and you saw in other countries, they actually do work. The deaths have happened. By the way, you can even see in the Euros, people in the stadiums without their masks because vaccines do work. Before in Europe, you could not get out of your house. You are restricted to your house. Actually, there has been a Euro match in Italy. And I think the same time this year, you could not actually think that would happen. What has happened? It is the magic of the vaccines.
Come in, Gaze.
I think the issue of misinformation is the biggest area. And why we are having this misinformation is there is also the two ends. Whenever you have the gray area, the two, because doctor is talking about the belief and the research. If I believe that if I get vaccinated, I'll have a problem. And then I'm going, even when I'm researching, I'm going to look at information to prove that actually this vaccines have problems.
It's going to cause you issues.
Exactly. And you will have a lot of information on that. But if you also want to find out the effectiveness of this vaccine and the usefulness when you get vaccinated, do the any of those. And that population is also big. They want to listen to hear from someone. And this someone sometimes is not giving the right information, doesn't believe in the vaccines, or if he believes in the vaccines, then the other area, there's also the President Trump had started the issue of alternative facts. So there are also the alternative facts to the vaccine. Basically, I think that's why, partly why, and you know, Africans are not very good at researching and reading. Maybe if you are reading for exams. Now, that is one of the biggest problems. Then the health community also now, the professionals have to come in to explain. But now you can do that with malaria, you can do that with the TB, you can, but in this particular case, by the time you finish explaining today, we would have lost 3, 4, 5 people. So the rate at which the infection is also running is fast. So I think there is a need now to come in with a number of interceptions, including information, but also the health community is also very busy. You remember, yesterday we have been running around to get some of the professionals, and we are lucky.
Lucky to get Dr. Yen
and also
Dr. Msoke.
Yeah, happy with the Dr. Kavanda, who was also trying to run around to find someone. But you realize that most of our professionals are involved now in day-to-day saving of lives. Now, then you also have to find them involved in the actual explanation of certain facts. So we are in a very crucial time. Now, there has also been politics of vaccines, because these vaccines are made by companies, and these companies are not religious organizations, but even religious organizations, you now know, they are looking for money. So there has also been that politics. This one doesn't work. This one works this way. This one works this way. But also for Africa, like the president put last time, I think we're also unfortunate. We have professionals. We can also have our own vaccines. But like Africa has not given that chance, or has not also taken that initiative to ensure that we have our own vaccines. But even when we try, we're now having issues with Covidex, because people are saying, those who have used it are saying, yes, we have used this thing and it works. But now the other agencies, the other companies, the others are saying, no, this vaccine needs to be taken through all the protocols. I mean, this medicine has to be taken all through the protocols as all others are supposed to, which is true, because you cannot get a medication and you give it to a population when it has not gone through all the necessary procedures. But this is a dire situation. Do we wait until that all of those are done? But even vaccines, you remember, it's a, doctor will tell you that a vaccine to be done, it takes a number of years. But we may not even wait to see all those years when the population is in dire need. Now, the other thing is the exact politics. The political sentiments. We have seen countries in Africa, who are talking about the large part of Africa, where vaccines have been refused. And we have seen populations that have not even allowed in the vaccination. And also have seen countries where vaccination is optional. But if you're having a population of only 1% of people are vaccinated, and you have all these other issues now, where does that leave Africa? At the same time, like the president said, we are only begging people, because doctor told you, even when with money, you may fail to get it. So it is like, because even those who are producing the vaccines also have problems back at home. I've seen from India, which is one of the countries which produce most of the vaccines. But they are stuck.
Okay.
When they were struck, they also had issues.
And I think from that very one, let's first bring in Dr. Ntate here, Dr. Msoka in Sierra Leone, on the issue of the vaccines. Dr. Msoka, speak to us about this politics of the vaccines, because we're seeing so many vaccines on market. There is AstraZeneca, which is, I think, very predominant on the continent of Africa. There is J&J, there is Moderna, there is Pfizer. There are quite a number of these, and there are quite a number. And we do not know which is more effective. We do not know which we should prefer against all the others. But according to the experts, you actually seem to tell us, or to convince us, that all these vaccines are the same. But yet again, we have this stereotype over the vaccines, and we're talking about the vaccine itself. If we know that it is a vaccination that is going to help us fight the phases or the waves in which we are enduring now, and we have issues with the vaccines, I don't know what is happening in Sierra Leone. I don't know how they're receiving this. I don't know what they're doing with the vaccines. But let's talk about the vaccines themselves and what we think we need to do as a continent to overcome this problem.
Thank you, Mr. Simakula. It's unfortunate you're asking me to talk about politics. So anyway, I can say some few things about vaccines and what is happening around the globe. Please allow me to just reiterate the statement from Dr. Okello. Vaccines actually work, and particularly for COVID-19, if you look at the global statistics, you see that countries that have vaccinated a lot of their people, things have stabilized, life is moving slowly back to normal. So these vaccines are actually helping a great deal. But talking about the politics of vaccines, I would probably call it challenges related to financing and equity. There is a good way that this was perceived right from the start, and there are some global facilities that were put in place to mitigate against some of the anticipated challenges. There's what we call the COVAX facility, and the World Health Organization is part of that arrangement. And this COVAX facility is to enable countries to get vaccines through one basket, as opposed to countries dealing directly with pharmaceutical companies. And this one, we think, is a good way to protect the poorer countries, member states of WHO and countries around the world, to gain some buying power, as opposed to the rich nations, which many of them can even manufacture their own vaccines, or where these companies are based, and they could probably have more influence at that level. So through the COVAX facility, all countries were given a quota right from the start, based on the population distribution, based on the caseload, based on the number of deaths being observed around, to get a certain quota of vaccines to access. And this is revised from time to time based on the progression of the disease, how it is also moving around. And I thought that was probably a good way to overcome the problem. It might not have worked 100%, but the alternative probably could have been worse. True, pharmaceuticals are out to make money. At the end of the day, they are commercial entities, but also some of them have been having direct links with countries that are willing to buy. They are also encouraged to work directly with some of those companies. As long as there is a bilateral agreement or understanding, they can be approached directly and they can get access to these vaccines.
What vaccine are you using in Sierra Leone? What vaccine is in Sierra Leone?
Yeah, so far there are two that have been deployed in the country. There is AstraZeneca, and also there is another one from Sinopharm, which is a Chinese enterprise. Those are the ones that have been used so far, but others would be added to the menu later.
Dr. Okello here talked about the vaccine hesitancy, which is a public health thing. You two know it very well. How is it in Sierra Leone? What's the hesitancy like to the vaccines in Sierra Leone?
Well, I would say it's the same across the continent, what we are seeing, but it's not even just an African problem. It is a public health problem and it is a global problem. And it is not just for the for COVID-19. What makes it now more complicated is that we are dealing with a new disease that is rapidly evolving. The science of it is still also being understood. It's a situation that is on a pandemic scale. We haven't been dealing with problems like this before, but all kinds of vaccines that have been developed before have really gone through the same kind of process. People have to scrutinize information back and forth to finally believe that actually this is going to protect. And many times we have been having these discussions with some of my colleagues. In the beginning, when COVID started on the African continent, apart from probably countries like South Africa, not so many people were dying. And some people believed maybe Africans are immune to this problem. Maybe we shall not see deaths. So maybe we also don't need vaccines. But now we are seeing that actually deaths are taking place, and we wouldn't wish for us to only understand because we are seeing death. But unfortunately, many times a disease that does not cause pain, many times we don't take it seriously. But we need to take COVID seriously, and we need to promote the use of vaccines when available. At least at a personal level, what I told those who are close to me, I encouraged everyone to take the vaccine and ask questions later. Because there wasn't just enough time to explain. So that is the approach I used at a personal level. But I would encourage everyone to promote vaccines when available, and to those who deserve to get them. Thank you.
Okay. Well, we thank you, Dr. Msoke. We're still with you for the next 1 hour. We'll just take a break now. And when we return from the break, we'll continue the discussion. And we thank you so much for being with us live in Sierra Leone where you are. We'll take a break and return, then continue the conversation.
Good Morning Uganda Extra. There's magic in sharing the things that we learn, because it's those things that bring us close together. What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we learn, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Airtel Uganda has the best and most affordable rates when it comes to withdrawing and sending money. Withdraw money for as low as 330 shillings up to a maximum of 12,500 shillings. Sending money is just as affordable as ever. Absolutely unbeatable. Use Airtel Money on the most affordable network with the largest network of Airtel Money branches in Uganda. Dial *185# to get started. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
It's up on African Friday. My name is Jagana Semakola Zuksoka. Welcome back to UBC TV. Continuing with the conversation here, discussing the variant, the Delta variant, and asking a question of how we think our content should respond. Being unvaccinated and thinking that, or having known that vaccines are the way to go. We have in studios Dr. Okello Ayen from Kampala Capital City Authority, and of course he's one of these, one of the people that have been on the front line fighting this pandemic from when it broke out in this country in March last year. And we also have Dr. Robert Musoke Ntate joining us live on Zoom from Sierra Leone. He's a Ugandan expert, one of those who were deployed in West Africa to go and fight the Ebola epidemic that had broken out in the countries of Sierra Leone and Sierra Leone and Liberia. And he's also talking to us from where he is, and which is very commendable of him. And of course, Akol, before we get back to Sierra Leone, or before we come to Dr. Yen here, let's hear your thoughts.
Well, Dr. Yen had talked about the issue of information. Yeah, and I just want to begin on that because there was a lot of negative information, which are negative publicity before the vaccination. You remember there were a lot of clips saying that now look here, they are dying in thousands. Why do they want to test the vaccine in Africa? So I think that also kind of created that the vaccine hesitancy, where people are really hesitant, saying why particularly Africa. And now this takes us to the issue that the president has actually always talked about, that we need to come up with an African solution. Perhaps maybe if the team of doctors on the continent, the CDC, perhaps if they announce that, look here, this is an African vaccine, I believe most people on the continent would have more faith in the vaccine. Because some people are saying, like, look here, now somebody manufactures a disease for you, again, it should not be the same person really to send you the vaccine. Of course, those are some of the sentiments. So we have a feeling that really our team of doctors really on the continent should work so hard to give us hope. And this time around, the Africans are really shifting from seeking divine intervention. Now this time, we are still focusing on the human intervention, our experts' intervention. Somebody said that in Africa, when a phenomenon cannot be understood, they seek divine intervention. That's when people say maybe the gods are angry with us, but now we are past that. We're still looking at the human solution, who are our experts in this particular thing. But again, coming back to really to Dr. here and also Dr. Musoke was joining, because I would also want Dr. Musoke in Sierra Leone to paint a picture for us how they successfully fought COVID, and perhaps what lessons we can learn from, because Sierra Leone and Liberia were hit seriously by
How they fought Ebola, you say?
how they fought, yes, how they fought
Okay.
Ebola, yes. So how they can paint a picture, and perhaps how can we use that particular experience in fighting this. Now, back to Doctor here. I just want us to look at you as people in the medical field. How are you advising government? Because we're seeing that perhaps like the health sector has been totally liberalized, that today a treatment that you ordinarily used to go for around 10,000 can shoot as much as 2 million, and nobody seems to care.
Just start on how we're advising government on the health market, the dynamics of the health market, and whether government should intervene in the health market or no. By nature, our health system, the way it is designed, as I say, it is a dichotomy. There is a public and there is a private. Now, for the public, services are free, and by having that nature is that we are already indirectly intervening in the health market. And when the COVID-19 pandemic started, the first thing government did was, we are going to offer these services at no cost. So when the treatment centers were opened, the point was, let's offer it at no cost, such that if it is at no cost, whoever would want to come in, we have already set a level that there is an alternative. Now, once you have an alternative, then you tend to intervene in the cost that the market may then be able to offer. Now, the challenges that we have seen is, and this is what COVID brings, is that when COVID starts overwhelming or putting strains in that service that is at no cost, you'll find alternatives will come in. Now, these alternatives that will be private in nature would then probably have costs that may be much, much higher. Some may be justified, some may not be justified. Now, the other thing is, let government also, how does government intervene in this area where you find that the costs may be a little bit higher? And that is why at that point the Ministry of Health, I'm aware, has had meetings with the private sector, and also other arms of government have had meetings with the private sector, such that those costs can be brought to a manageable level. As you're saying, the principle is, it is a pandemic. Secondly is, let us have the principle of saving life. The issue of costs and the issue of profit, as the President has always said, can come later. If you're looking at these people, persons or patients as your customers, serve the customer first as a principle. The customer is always king. So if you feel that you're not making the customer as king and making him go closer to his grave, then the customer is no longer king. That means you're not serving the principle that you are. That's why it's saying life first, then the issues of profit can then be able to come later. And I know the Honorable Minister is going to make a statement
Today, sometime this afternoon.
He's going to make in Uganda, he's going to make a statement this afternoon. And I know those interventions are going to come in on how we can stabilize the market and probably reduce on these unfair costs that are being put on different people.
Dr. Msoke, I call us to a question on the pandemic the epidemic that you had of Ebola, and maybe Sierra Leone learned some very good lessons, because it's not long ago since we saw that outbreak of Ebola in Sierra Leone. He wants to know whether Ebola came with very good lessons that Sierra Leone is using to manage COVID-19.
Thank you for the question. I noted it, and I actually wanted to add another aspect to it. So the outbreak of Ebola in West Africa 2014 to 2016 affected mostly Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea. And a number of interventions, public health interventions, were used to overcome the outbreak. Most of them were not really new interventions, because they had been tried and tested elsewhere in the world, and these are the ones that were used here, with a few modifications to fit the local context. But the addition I wanted to make is the role of vaccines. because as we may be aware, there has been another outbreak of EVD in Guinea earlier this year, starting around 14th of February, and the outbreak was declared over on the 19th of June. But the most recent outbreak, which happened just in the neighborhood to Sierra Leone, was much different from the one of 2014-2016, and we believe the difference has been mostly attributable to the vaccination. This most recent outbreak involved 23 cases and about 12 deaths. Unfortunately, about 5 health workers died during this most recent outbreak, but also a lot of individuals, including frontline health workers, were reached out with a vaccine, over 14,000 cumulatively. And we believe because of this, we did not see this outbreak explode out of control, no exportation of cases to neighboring countries, and no even exportation of cases to other regions of the country apart from where the outbreak was reported. So I trust that the vaccines really helped a lot. But through the fact that the country here had gone through the EVD outbreak, the coordination structures that were used back then, the experience of the leaders and the technical personnel who are involved in the EVD outbreak has really helped a lot in designing interventions around the response to COVID-19 this time around. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Msoke. Dr. Yen, let's look at the biggest contributors to Africa's statistics of COVID, because you've all talked about, you called it actually infodemic or infodemics or whatever that is. When COVID got onto the continent of Africa on a Valentine's Day last year through, I think, Alexandria in Egypt, they vulgarized it and took it as an everyday flu or whatever that was. It crept to South Africa and several other countries that were hit so hard in the first wave, and they just looked at it and played about it. We tried to manage it in the first time because we were dealing with something unknown to us, and but when it gets to where we are now, I think we have the media seems to be losing it. It just seems out there that Msoke is in Sierra Leone. But he, of course, knows what is happening. We're living in a global world. But what is coming to the media or through the media seems to be very worrying that now Uganda seems to be the next epicenter of Africa when we talk about the Delta variant here. Are we the biggest contributor to Africa's statistics of COVID currently?
When you look at the countries, I think the week, and Dr. Msoke will chip in later, when you look at the week, I think 21st to 27th, Uganda is of last month, Uganda is among the top 5 or top 6. I know it's South Africa, Zambia, Namibia, then Rwanda and Uganda. So we are among the top 5. In the other weeks, we have actually been within the top 5 contributors of the countries contributing in Africa. South Africa is way above there. So yes, in terms of us being among the contributors, yes we are, because we're in the top 5, and this has been reflected in some of the international response. You can see, I think the UK put us on the watch list, and I think apart from residents, Ugandans are not allowed to get into the UK. Dubai also put us on their watch list, yes. Whereby I know their airline, national airline, no longer flies there. It has been suspended. So looking at how we are being looked at internationally, yes, we're a contributor. But when you look at the number of cases that we are contributing, tend to be slightly reducing, but we are still among the top 5. So yes, we are.
Okay. I don't know whether I'm to answer something, but Dr. Msoke, on the statistics therein, as Dr. Ayen is talking about it here, Kipina, let's hear from you.
I beg your pardon. Is it possible to rephrase for me?
Oh, sorry about that. We talk about the statistics, and Uganda being one of the top 5 African countries contributing to African statistics of COVID-19. And we were hailed as one of the countries that had actually managed the COVID pandemic. We actually hailed up there as one of the best countries in the world. Now, it is turned. We are now one of, I don't want to say one of the last, but we are now the best again in contributing to the infections. What do you think explains this, and how can we run away from this?
Well, it is probably the nature of disease that we are dealing with. It's not that when we have a lot of cases, then we have failed. The disease itself has been, many of the countries around the world have experienced these waves before. And what we are experiencing currently is a wave. Naturally, it will slow down. The right things are being done.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Fellow Ugandans, you know that the current COVID-19 period is a trying time in our lives. However, we still have another threat that has been with us for a long time, and it is called neglected tropical diseases, also known as NTDs. NTDs include bilharzia and worms that cause swollen stomachs. Trachoma causes blindness, and elephantiasis causes the swelling of legs. These diseases are affecting millions globally, and yet they can be prevented by regular hand washing with soap and clean running water, regular washing of the face with a soap and clean running water, keeping dirty hands away from your eyes, always using pit latrines, and discouraging open defecation in your community to avoid flies that carry germs, reporting to the health facility early when feeling unwell. Remember to stay safe and protect yourself. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from Ascend Project.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Senchu points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.